Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So we are someplace new and different. Want to try something new and different. So I have always had a long-standing habit of boring the snot out of my husband with telling him about the most recent book that I have read. So he suggested I actually do that, but try to include you and just record it. So I'm going to be telling you and Ben all about the book that I just finished. And I will try to... I'll give warnings before I get too far in, so if you don't want to be spoiled or anything, you can tune out, I guess. So...
Not sure. They're here... I'm not sure this is their kind of content to begin with, if they're worried about getting spoiled, but...
The book that I just finished this morning was Legends Lattes by Travis Baldree? I think. I'll put a picture here. But that's the book that I'm going to be talking about right now. So
I've heard of this book through TikTok, so when...
You have?
Yeah.
You've seen it on TikTok?
Yeah.
Separate from me?
Correct. Which is why when you were like, I have this Legends Lattes book, I'm like, oh, that's been spicy on TikTok. You should pick that one.
Interesting. It just doesn't seem like a TikTok kind of book, I guess.
I mean, it doesn't... I don't think most of the time I've seen it on TikTok, people defending it because people were dumb and didn't realize that it was sapphic. And so they're like, I can't believe this book has got lesbians in it. I didn't expect this. And then people holding the book up and being like, there's two women on the cover looking at each other with please kiss me vibes. Like, that's on you, bud.
Well, do you want to know a little bit more about the book?
Yes.
Okay.
I assume there's lattes and kissing, but I feel like there's...
Yes, more of the first than of the second. But, yeah, so the book Legends Lattes starts off with our main character, Viv. She is an orc. And the book opens with a bang. She is killing a big, bad, evil creature. It's called the Scalvert Queen.
That's dope.
Queen of all the Scalverts. And so she delivers this killing blow, reaches inside the creature's body, and pulls out this, like, gemstone kind of thing. And then she's basically, like, says to all of her companions, hey, bye! And then she pieces out. And the queen's hoard is full of other jewels and stuff, so she's like, I've left them plenty of treasure for their bits. Goodies. So Viv, like, pulls this Scalvert stone out of the creature, and she is setting off on her journey. And the opening chapter, that's like the prologue. And so then in chapter 1 and 2 and 3, she is arriving in the city of Thune, which she has chosen because she's done some research, and she's been there once or twice before.
Market research.
Yes, she's done market research because she has this dream of opening up a cafe. Because on her travels where she was campaigning and doing missions and she went to this, like, far east gnomish town and drank coffee for the first time and found it wonderful and delicious. And so she is wanting to open her own little cafe. But really the whole point of this is that she's lived this campaigning, bloody, you know, sword life, like
typical D&D mercenary stuff.
Yeah, she's been mercenary for 20 years at this point, and she wants to just, you know, do something different, right? And she's been saving up all of the money that she's been earning on all of these mercenary trips and stuff. So now she has, like, a nest egg to start this business. The point of the whole stone thing that she took out of this creature is that, like, legend has it that this stone has some sort of magical aura or whatever that helps. It's sort of like a good luck charm, or, like, helps draw to you what you most need. So she, like, comes to the city of Thune, which meets her research expectations. It also has a lot of ley lines underneath, which is, like, what's supposed to be what helps like trigger this magic or whatever. And she finds a livery that's like run down, practically out of business. She tracks down the owner, gets him to sell it to her, and she puts this stone under one of the flagstones in the floor. And then she starts her business. She meets a guy on like a hob. I don't even think it's a hobgoblin. I think it's just a hob. Meets this like guy who works down at the docks, who is like obviously like crafty. She hires him to help clean out and clear up the place, and they build some booths and they build some tables and set the place up. And they become sort of friends. And then shortly before the business is about to open, she has sent off and paid for a fancy coffee like maker from the gnomes, and it arrives and with like gnomish runes and stuff on it.
The artisanal
sort of like I'm picturing like an espresso machine. Yeah. And of course, like Cal, this guy she hires, like doesn't know what coffee is. No one knows what coffee is, and he's like, bean water, because like she gets the beans when he's there, and he's like, so you grind this up and pour hot water over it. And she's like, no, trust me. So shortly before it's time to actually like open this business, she puts out an advertisement, and someone shows up, and it is the other person who's on the cover, who is Tandri. She is a succubus, which has this like reputation of being, that succubi have these like inherent abilities to like help influence other people's emotions and stuff, I think. Never really goes into a ton of background, but this is basically the person that Viv hires to help be a server and be a help make coffee and be another pair of hands at the shop. So they open, and of course, like, because no one knows has ever heard of coffee, like no one comes. And so Tandri's like, well, maybe we should advertise. And Viv's like, okay, yeah. And like Tandri has, she's good with her like calligraphy, like arts skills.
She has proficiency in the calligraphy kit.
Yes. And so she like puts up some signs, and they offer free samples for a day or two, just to like draw people in. And like and some people start showing back up. Like they obviously like their free sample. And
they get their caffeine hit.
Yeah, they're like, ooh, caffeine, all right. Yeah. So the friend Cal, who had been smart enough to put in like a stove, who said, well, maybe you're gonna want to serve some food eventually. Like, she's like, okay, maybe I can. And so she approaches like someone who was one of these like repeat customers who came out to free samples, and his name is Thimble, and he's like a little tiny like ratkin is what it's called, and I pictured like a rat person, but he was always coming in with like a flowery apron on. And so she was like, hey, any chance that you could like bake something that we could sell here? And Thimble like barely talks throughout this book. He like gestures, and every once in a while he'll be like, treats. And I'm like, okay. But basically, so now at this point, she's like gathered more people. Cal, who helped her build things, keeps dropping by to kind of check on her, and like they're friends now, and Tandri and her are friends, and they're working on this shop, and Tandri and Viv keep coming up with like, let's advertise, let's offer free samples, and then Thimble starts baking cinnamon rolls, and everyone's like, oh my god, these are amazing. And then he requests a few more ingredients, and he starts making the problem is that the cinnamon rolls are so delicious and are bringing people in, but like you basically have to eat them like hot and fresh. Like, so Thimble can barely even like keep up with the demand. And so then he creates what sound to me sort of like biscotti. They call them thimblets. But they're like, like harder,
genius.
Yeah, like harder sort of pastries.
How much I like that.
But they can keep longer, so they can keep more on hand.
So yeah, you can batch make them.
So at this point, I'm discussing something that like progressed at about, I'd say like 40% of the book. There's really been like no like tension. It's just about her like gathering supplies and opening the business and and this is sort of where a little the few. A tiny little bit of tension is coming into the book. She is approached like right at opening day by these goons in the street, or after business, and they were like, oh, so you're opening a new business, right? Well, you're gonna have to pay your dues to like the Madrigal. Like, she's like a figure of the town who is like, you know, for protection. And Viv is like this big old orc who's like, you think I need protection?
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not gonna pay your silly like taxes or whatever. And so she keeps getting told, like, the same guy who's like this like Madrigal's lackey, whose name is Lack, he keeps showing up, like reminding her, like, hey, like, you're gonna have to like pay these fines or whatever. And she's like, no, I'm not going to pay these fines. And so that's sort of like a little bit of the tension that's happening kind of as she's first opening, is that she's being pressured that she's going to need to like pay these like mafia dues kind of situation, just for having a business in the town. So there's a little bit of pressure for her to pay these dues to the Madrigal. And also, some of her old traveling companions, the people that she used to like go on in campaigns and stuff with, some of her other fellow mercenaries have come to kind of track her down and are like, the one guy who's her friend is like, oh wow, this is like a pretty nice place you got. Like, let me know if you ever need any help. And he gives her what he calls like a blink stone. And so like if she just throws it in the fire, it will like summon them, or like he'll get a message that like she needs them. So, you know, Rune is being a good guy. He's like, I wish you all the best. Like, good luck in your new business. But then one of the other guys that she would travel with and stuff, he was always this like prick, and he was always like I'm better than you. And he shows up and he says a couple things that oh, there's a bee. He says a couple words to her that implies that he knows that she has this Scalvert stone thing, which are like kind of rare because you have to like defeat a queen to get one. And so Viv is attributing a lot of her success to the fact that she has this Scalvert stone, and it's like, you know, doing his magic or whatever. And so
I feel like this is going to be one of those things where it's like, he was inside you the whole time, stone didn't do anything.
No. So those are the two sources of tension, is that she is feeling pressure to potentially need to pay these dues, which she doesn't want to do, because they'll be like a monthly thing. And theoretically, you know, as her business gets more successful, they could like up her dues and stuff. And she has this like creep from her past who's just kind of like lurking around or whatever.
Being a smarmy.
So I would say at this point of the book, it's about 50% of the way in, and if you don't want to hear any more, then you should stop.
This is the jump off point.
This is, yeah, the jump off point.
Into the deep end.
So she requests a meeting with the Madrigal to discuss these things because she doesn't want to pay the dues, and meets with Madrigal. And the Madrigal is like this like refined, like upstanding, wealthy, like older woman who's like the kingpin of the local, you know, whatever. Sure. And she basically says, like, you know, this woman's like, you know, we're not that different, you and I, but we went in different directions. She's like, you used to be this mercenary who's trying to like be a respectable business person, and she's like, I've gone the other way. And she's like, I can respect you, I can respect what you're trying to do. I'm fine with, like, for whatever reason, the Madrigal says, okay, it's fine for you not to pay me dues, but like you will have to give me a sack full of cinnamon rolls like every week or month or whatever. And she's like, that's fine.
That's a trade. That's a trade.
So
if anything, you can be like, I'm so fucking cool, the Madrigal doesn't charge me anything. That's how good my stuff is. Yeah.
So she kind of works things out with the Madrigal, and then the creep from her mercenary life, I think his name's like Fennis, I think. And
of course it's
Fennis, and he's like an elf, like a high elf who's like smarmy, like sneaky rogue shit. And he comes sneaking into her house. So one of the regulars who comes to the coffee shop is like a student of like the local magic university, and he like never wants to buy anything, but he's like keeps being drawn to the coffee shop because it's a good place to study, but also he is able to like detect that like something with all of the ley lines and magic and stuff is like really stable here. And Viv thinks it's because of the stone, but like she's not really sure. And so he offers to put a ward up that is for part of his like studies. And so she's like, can this ward tell me if someone's going to show up? He says, sure. So he sets it so that if Fennis shows up, she will be like alerted. Yeah. And so he sneaks in one night and she's alerted. And
that alarm spell, baby.
Yeah. And so she
That's value.
and she's been Viv has been sleeping in like the loft above the it used to be like the hayloft of the livery. Sure. And that's where she's sleeping. And so she just like boom, like jumps down over the loft down into the main dining area, and she scares him off or whatever. But like he definitely had rolled like a nat 20 on his like stealth or something, because like she had not detected him without this ward in place. And so
he rolled a nat 0 on his Arcana check.
So he leaves and without the stone, but like she's like, he's not going to try that again, right? Like he's going to try to be sneaky some other way, right? So she's not really sure what to do about it. She is having success with her business. Like she kind of, it's been another like month or so later, like she's having success with the business. Thimble has created chocolate filled croissant. And of course, everyone's like, oh!
Of course.
But he is really struggling to... Thimble...
We should not have done this before eating. Because I'm just...
Your stomach's like...
Yeah, it's bad.
But Thimble's like hardly able to even keep up with the demand, because they just have like one like small stove and that kind of thing. Anyway, Tandri, the succubus, who's her server friend... Tandri is very concerned that Fennis came creeping around in the night, and she offers to sleep over with Viv to help make sure that Viv is secure and everything. There has been a little like occasional glances between the two of them, and but Tandri is very like, she does not want to have that reputation of a succubus, right? She doesn't want people to be like. She doesn't want to use her powers and be perceived as like, oh, a succubus like gets what she wants because she's a succubus, that kind of situation. She even tried to go to the university for a little while to kind of like, I don't want to say better herself, but to try to be something that people could be like, oh, this is a university graduate, not a like, oh, she's just a succubus kind of a situation. Yeah. But there are slight vibes here happening between Viv and Tandri. Right. So Tandri sleeps over 2 or 3 times, and nothing happens or anything, but like nothing happens romantically or sexually, but like, Tandri is there to help be another set of perception, eyes and ears. And there has been this like dire cat that sometimes shows up around the cafe. And the dire cat showed up the first night that Fennis, like, she's been around, and she's sort of like become like the cafe like mascot to some extent, but she doesn't really play much of a role. She comes and goes as she pleases, but she shows up that first night that Fennis shows up. Like, she jumps down from the rafters, and Viv is like, how'd this cat get inside my cafe? Like, what the heck? In the middle of the night. But Fennis was kind of like freaked out by this cat, right? And
I was gonna say, is Fennis the cat? But
no. But then the cat alerts Tandri and Viv when they're sleeping one night, and it's because Fennis has set the place on fire with magical green fire. So suddenly the whole place is just, and they barely manage to get out. Viv runs back inside and tosses out her like her safe or whatever, or strong box or whatever, with any money that they have, and she like and like rips up the like coffee machine because it was very expensive and she had to send away for it, and like, but that's like the last thing she's able to save before, and she saves Tandri and herself and the cat. But the whole place burns down because it's just this magical green fire that just is burning extremely, extremely hot and burns the place down. So Viv is devastated. She realizes that Fennis must have been the one to set this fire, and the place is completely destroyed. It's literally just ashes at this point. Like, there's a few foundational rocks that can be salvaged, and that's kind of it. And so she's kind of in like this like depression for a little bit. Tandri helps take care of her, and Tandry brings her back to her house, and she's, helps heal her up a little bit because she got burned. And then Cal, the friend who has always helped her build and everything, and Tandry are like, we'll help you rebuild. And she's like, I don't have any money left. Like, I spent it all on buying this place and getting it up and running in the first place. And she really only has like no platinum left. She's basically just down to some like gold and copper and stuff. And there was not enough time for the business to be successful to have any like true income yet. But her friends are like, we're here for you, we'll help you. And she's just kind of like dismissive of them at first. And then she realizes that that's her like old self coming through, the old self that just wants to like lash out at people. So she kind of reluctantly is like, all right. So all of them come together, and she's surprised to find these other like friends and regulars of the coffee shop are coming to swing by and help out. And
they need that caffeine fix.
They need their caffeine. And so the young kid who she let come and play his lute occasionally, he comes by, and his family are like stonemasons, so he helps lay some foundation. Cal is the builder. He helps build things. Thimble, the baker, helps bring food for the crew that's building that's constantly working on building. And Cal is like, if we're going to be building this place, we're going to be building it even better than it was before. So he builds like a proper kitchen area that's big enough for like 2 stoves. And everything is kind of coming together. And so by the end of the book, the stone, of course, is gone. Like Viv had like kind of went through the ashes like right after the building burned down, and of course the Scalvert stone is gone. So she realizes that Fennis must have like snuck in, stolen the stone, and set the fire and left. And so at the end of the book, they have managed to rebuild the shop, and it's bigger and grander than it was before, with more oven space and room for kitchens and Thimble to like churn out more and more delicious pastries. And they open, and they have business pretty much right away. And they have like actually made a little stage for any bard who might want to come and strum their lute or whatever. And upstairs, she didn't just have like a basic loft. She built like a proper like 2 bedrooms. And so at the end of the book, she realizes that her like friends really helped make this happen. And there's this like goofy little old gnome dude who kept kind of showing up, drinking coffee, and he sometimes says things that don't really make any sense. And my personal theory is that he's like a time wizard something, because he says things like out of order basically. And so I think that he's like messing with time basically, because he says, oh, this is just as I remembered it, when he comes to like the grand reopening. And she was like, well, yeah, we made some improvements. He was like, I think it does look like that from your end, like he says things like that where it's like timey-wimey.
Sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
And like when like
divination wizard.
Yeah, and like when Tandry and Viv kind of share a moment and a glance, he says, "Oh, congratulations, by the way." And she's like, "Congratulations on what? Like the grand reopening?" He goes, "Yeah, that too." And then he's like, "I think I might be like doing things out of order. You might not have gotten there yet." And he's like, he's like seeing into their future and that kind of thing. So at the end, but that guy tells Viv, he says, "Oh, you had a Scalvert stone, didn't you?" And she says, "Yeah." And she's like, "It's gone now." And she's like, "I don't know if it ever really worked, but I'll have to try without it, now." And he's like, "Well, you realize that it's not just about like bringing fortune your way. It's really a bit more about like bringing the people to you that you needed." And so she looks around and realizes that she has Thimble, and she has Cal, and she has Tandry, and she has these regulars from the shop, and she kind of realizes how fortunate she is. And so at the very, very end, it's a big grand reopening, and it goes well and is successful. And she shows Tandry upstairs at the end of the day and how she's built 2 rooms, and she supplied the one full of like art supplies and stuff, and she offers Tandry to like move in with her, and they have a kiss.
Aww.
So
adorable.
It is adorable.
Adorable. I like that a lot.
Thanks so much for listening to my very, very long rambles about the whole plot of this book. I guess I didn't really give much of a review of it, but overall, I would say this book is cozy and is cute, and it is definitely low stakes, low tension, low angst, but in like a really nice way. It also definitely made me want pastries.
It's like a good like palate cleanser.
It definitely was, and it was fun to have the like D&D elements, but like it's just kind of that just happens to be the setting. It's like D&D is not like a part of it other than the fact that it's like those are the creatures in the setting. Yeah. But yeah, it definitely was cozy and cute. It's not really like a romance per se. There are just a couple vibes in the book of romance, but it's really more about the journey and discovery and Viv's change into the person that she wants to be. So, and it definitely, I don't think is a very realistic business models. It makes me feel like I could just like go out and start a business and have success within like 3 months.
Well, I mean, if you were the first person to ever open a coffee shop in the city, you probably
sure, maybe, yeah. But so yeah, I would definitely recommend. It's super cute. It was not the vibes that it was the vibes that I was hoping for, but I did expect a stronger romance element, I will say. So that like don't go into this expecting it to be like a sapphic romance. Like there are the vibes there, but like there's like a kiss and that's it. You know,
much slower.
Yeah, and I would say like as a romance, we got to see some connection there, but we didn't get to see a ton of like falling in love situation. This is like the start of something new, you know. So yeah. I really enjoyed it. Would definitely recommend. I hope it sounds interesting to you, and I hope that you were not put to sleep the way I put my husband to sleep.
I'm not falling asleep. I'm very hungry.
I know. We're sitting outside the restaurant where we hope to go have brunch. So.
And also, you kept talking about pastries. This isn't
well,
fair.
because there were a lot of pastries, and the name of the coffee shop is called Legends Lattes.
Adorable.
So.
Adorable.
Definitely recommend. Let me know down in the comments if you've read this book, or if you think we should do more car videos, or if you think that Ben should have had more commentary during this video, or if
plenty of commentary.
If you think this would be kind of something that you would like to see more of, let me know. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
Bye.